I am getting used to putting out these anti-post videos. The columns keep going up on gg.co.uk, so please go check those out for reasoning, some performances from the previous week and some things to look forward to for the week ahead. But I'm going to try and not rush through this one, but I'm going to try and get straight to the point. This is bet number 3. I guess a few of you via Twitter will probably already know who it is that I'm putting up. This video, I don't know how long the shelf life will be because he races tomorrow, but it is Allaho for the Ryanair. I will pull up on the screen now. I've had 75 on Allaho, 6-1 Bet365. 6-1 is still available at the time of recording. So I'm just going to run you through a few reasons behind it. John Bond's not going to go to the Ryanair. John Bond is currently 6-1 for the race, a bit shorter than that with some bookmakers. So I think he's taken up a chunk of the market that he doesn't really need to be. It's about 16% of the market he takes up. Now, Allaho obviously has got to come back from an injury, quite a rare injury. It was a bleed in the spleen, I believe. But the fact that he's out this early is a good positive sign. We do know that sometimes he's looked like he needs his first run. It is going to be pretty slow ground there at Clonmel on Thursday. But I have a slightly different logic with these types of horses that are coming back from a significant layoff, whereby I think they should be good to go. I can't imagine. I know that a horse that might improve for racing, I can't imagine Willie Mullins is going to get a horse X injury to come out and not really be there to show the vast majority of what he does. And Allaho is a pretty one-dimensional horse, isn't he? He's out, gone, sort of catch me if you can scenario. So I wouldn't be as forgiving as many other people might be if he does get beat, but it is plausible he could get beat in here and go and win. Now, relatively, Janadil is 161 rated, maybe, I think. Give him £5 to Allaho, and then French Dynamite is 155. So they're levels, Allaho and French Dynamite. So in theory, Allaho's got to run 157 plus to win this, and he might need a little bit more than that. So in the 160s would be good enough to win this. So where people will say that he doesn't even need to be at his best to win the race on Thursday, that is true. But if he wasn't at his best and he just about gets the job done, again, he could improve for it. But I don't know. I'm still hoping that he's going to glisten. Now, onto the price, right? I've advised him in the GG column at 5-1. I think that's fair. And again, from a price perspective, if Allaho was as short as 7-2 for this race this far out, I don't think anybody would be saying, whoa, he's a terribly short price. Let's look at laying him. If he was sort of sub 5-2, 2-1, you might reach that point, but he isn't, right? So I wouldn't necessarily see him the same value if he was a 7-2 poke, but you wouldn't argue with it. Reason I'm referencing that is there are some of us who are more risk adverse than others, and there are different ways to play anti-post betting. So me, historically, I would look at a race where I'm happy to have multiple selections in there. I want to get a bit of it covered, but to buy into my slice of the pie to get Allaho in the book at 5 or 6-1 is the time to play, I believe, right? If he was to falter and go do his nuts and just be gone, right, we've bet a horse that was supposed to take up 16% of the book. If we manage to beat some at bigger prices, then we can claw that negative back. But obviously, if he does go well and he ends up being a 2-1 poke, then it's cost us 16% of 100% to buy in when he'd actually have a 33% chance. So you're sort of getting with me now. We can start getting some cover on horses at 25s, 33s. I know people are talking about Protector up maybe coming back. He's a 33-1 poke. I'd worry about his form in the spring, but I just mean you can pick these horses like an Edwardstone that's going to step up that could be threats. They're 20s and 33s. You can have some cover on those. But another way you could play it is Allaho runs tomorrow, right? And again, of a Willie Mullins horse that comes back from an injury or a layoff, he would be one that you would forgive more for that first run. Again, I'm not hoping that. I'm hoping he's going to bolt up, but you could forgive it a little bit more. He's priced 1-3 in that race I've talked about, where French Dynamite and Janet, there were much of a muchness in like figures with the adjusted ratings in there. I've got to try and take him on, right? So if he's 1-3, let's just be generous and say the exchanges put him at 1-2 because they want to get him beat, and you're playing this as a punter, right? I'm just going to talk you through a potential logic you could do, because I think a few people would look at Janadil tomorrow and think he's a good bet, right? Potentially he does fall a bit. I'm still all over Allaho winning the race, but we're talking about risk-adverse potential options to play this, right? Let's say you've had a hypothetical £50 on Allaho at 6-1, Bet365, so you get £350 back. If you were to lay Allaho on the exchanges for a £25 liability, which would give you £50 back, that would give you your anti-post money back. You would have outlaid in total at risk is 75 quid. So that brings your bet down to what, 4.66 as a decimal. So just over 7-2. So like I say, I touched on, if he was about 7-2, you wouldn't sniff at that. But we've got a potential semi-risky free one there. Because if he goes and gets beat, You've got your stakes back. You've still got the bet on Allaho when it comes to March. There'll be some sort of semblance of cash out on there, whatever that's going to be. So you've got an option to have a free roll on Allaho. Obviously, it would be the price you backed him at, but it'd be a free roll on Allaho to return 350 quid. If you were to do it that way and lay him, you would have got your £50 back that you laid out. Or should he go and win? Okay, you've had the £75 total outlay, so it means you've got a relative 7-2. But should he win tomorrow, he's already as short as 4-1 in places. He will not be 7-2, will he? Again, depending on the margins and the way that he goes and wins it. So that's a potential option and way to look at it. And that's me saying that he's a 1-2 poke. If he ends up being 1-3 or shorter, say there's a non-runner Janadil comes out and he ends up being 1-8 or something, you then can reduce your liability further. And if it was, say, I don't know, 16 quid, so say it was a 1-3 poke, to get you £50 back, then that probably comes out as what, 5.2-ish? So just over 4-1. So again, if there's anyone out there that's cautious or concerned with whether they want to get in, and I know we get a bit of FOMO with these types of ones, I would imagine that 99% of you out there would look at it and say, look, Allaho should be short if the old Allaho's back, but we don't know if the old Allaho's back. Yes, he is 9, but when we touched on the horse like Protectorat, he's actually had more runs over like under rules than Allaho's had, even though he's a year, he's junior. He's had the same runs over fence. They've both had 12. So while he is a bit of an older horse, he's not exactly as gassed out of racing as you would imagine, considering we think of him back as an Albert Bartlett running an RSA, 2-time Ryanair winner. It's mad, isn't it? I just think this is the time to get involved. Values in the eye of the beholder and all that jazz. But I'm saying I think you should bet Allaho for the Ryanair, and I think the price is okay. As I say, if you're more worried about what his performance might be, there are options to potentially get the Antepost bet on and then to look at laying a little bit on the exchanges if you want. But again, you don't have to do anything, do you? This is just the way that I'm talking about, the way that I play it. Lots of the other bets that I've put up, like a Lucia and like a Tiapu, I won't be doing anything weird with. Although saying that, Lucia does get a mention in the column, right? She didn't run potentially as well as she could have done in the Mares Hurdle last week at Wetherby, but she did run all right. And she was 16-1 top price I advised her. So if you had backed from Bet365, like I have, I did 25 on Bet365, 25 on Betfair. Betfair pushed her out to 25-1. So what I did is I cashed out the 23.75 on Lucia on Bet365, and I've now stuck that on Betfair at 25s because it increases the amount of return. So another thing to think about the Antepost punting is just because a horse gets moved out doesn't mean that it's game over. And if you can cash out somewhere and then put it on at the bigger bookies, Betfair are pretty good because right now they give you the 100% cash out before they've run. So it just gives you time to think and move monies about. Obviously, we want to get stuck in Antepost on a few bets and we want to get the right price. We want everything to go smoothly, but it doesn't always work that way. So you just want to increase your value, increase your percentage of the pie that you've got for how much risk you've had to put in there so that when it comes nearer the occasion, if you need to balance your book by betting other horses or laying or anything like that, you put yourself in a good position. So don't sleep on market moves. And like I say, don't just look at everything one-dimensionally, like you have to get stuck into something and leave it as that. I have done that with Tiapu. I've had the 100 on him. Happy to leave that. Still think he's a fair price. Lucia, I had the money on. I don't think it's gone just yet, but we'd need to see a bolt up next time in a handicap. And then in Allaho, this is probably the most risky of all of them coming out there. He is the shortest of all of them, but I think the risk-reward in there can be managed. I'm happy just to leave the bet. I will not be laying him tomorrow, even though potentially it is a sensible thing to do. I am personally happy where I am. But like I say, if you are a bit more risk adverse and you would rather think, actually, you know what, I want to try and get some of my money back, I've talked about how you can play the exchanges to do that. So have a think. It's options and food for thought for other bets you might stick on through the season. But it is Allaho as bet number 3, 75 JID on him. On the boy. Let's hope he goes and gets it done. I'm sure all of you will think that whether you've bet him or not. Please make sure you do like the video. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. I will see you guys again soon.